an only child, the apple of my parents' eyes, a princess who could do no wrong. So when my parents told me that they had a surprise for my 7th birthday, I was ecstatic and lost sleep thinking about what it could be. A new Lego playset, the doll I'd seen at the toy store, a pony? The possibilities were endless. When the morning of my birthday arrived, I leapt from my bed and charged full tilt downstairs, where my mother was sitting at the kitchen table with her morning cup of coffee. A quick scan of the room didn't reveal anything out of the ordinary, and immediately my stomach sank with disappointment. I clambered into the chair beside her and leaned forward across the table so that my face was in hers.
Mama?
She set her coffee aside and scooped me up in a great big bear hug until I was shrieking with laughter. Once I had been suitably smothered with birthday kisses, she set me down and told me she was going to make me chocolate chip pancakes with whipped cream for breakfast. Although this made my stomach growl with anticipation, I wasn't going to be swayed from my original mission.
Mama, you said I'd get a surprise today. Where is it?
I asked, with all the tact that children are known for.
Daddy's gone to get it for you, Princess. You have to be patient.
I was like a firecracker with a short fuse all through breakfast. I bounced in my seat, ran back and forth between the window looking out on the driveway, and peppered my mother with a million questions about what my surprise could be, but she just told me to eat my pancakes. I had barely managed to get one down when I heard the sound of my dad's car door shutting outside. With a squeal of excitement, I ran out to meet him in the carport, only to come to an abrupt halt when I saw that he had not come home alone. He was carrying a girl who looked a little younger than I was. She was small for her age, delicate like porcelain, and topped with tight golden ringlets that framed her round face. God himself could not have created a more perfect cherub than this child. She regarded me shyly with the purest blue eyes I'd ever seen and gave the tiniest of waves. I was immediately entranced.
Well, good morning, kiddo. Happy birthday!
My dad chuckled and knelt to kiss me atop my head.
I guess you've seen your surprise.
He gently placed the little girl in front of me and beamed at the two of us.
Her name is Susie. What do you think?
She's my present?
I asked uncertainly. Dad frowned.
Don't you like her?
I looked from my dad to the girl and back again. He seemed perfectly serious. I had been asking for a sister for ages, and now they'd gotten me one. I clapped my hands and threw my arms around Dad's waist.
I love her!
He seemed relieved and tousled my hair.
Take her in and show Mommy.
I was only too happy to oblige. I took Susie's hand and led her into the kitchen, where Mom oohed and ahed over how pretty she was. Susie giggled and hid her face against my shoulder, which already made me feel like the best big sister ever. I took Susie through the house, showing her all the rooms and introducing her to the cats, Dot and Smurf. When she reached out to pet Smurf, he swatted at her and bolted from the room. Fat tears immediately welled in her eyes, and I hugged her comfortingly, reassuring her that Smurf was just a fat old grump, and he was like that with most new people. The incident was soon forgotten once we reached my room, and became engrossed in accessorizing my Barbies. Susie and I were soon inseparable. Mom and Dad thought it was the cutest thing ever, and took a million pictures of us doing the most mundane things. Sitting at the table eating, splashing through a sprinkler in the backyard, lounging in our PJs in front of the TV with a big bowl of popcorn between us. It seemed they were thrilled that their little girls were getting along so well. One lazy summer evening, Susie and I were lying on the kitchen floor, coloring in a new book our grandmother had sent. Smurf had been stalking us from the countertops while we worked, and I could tell it was making Susie uncomfortable. So I gathered the old guy up and carried him to the living room. He purred contentedly in my arms, so I snuggled him for a minute before plopping him on the couch next to my parents and returned to the kitchen. Susie was sitting amongst the remains of the coloring book, which lay shredded across the kitchen floor. A pair of scissors was beside her. I gaped at her, my mouth hanging open, and she giggled sweetly.
Why did you do that?
I shouted, for the first time becoming cross with my sister. My parents were drawn to the noise and stood in the doorway, their hands on their hips.
What's going on in here?
Look what Susie did!
I gestured angrily toward the mess and the guilty party, who was now pouting down at the floor.
Oh, Princess. I don't think Susie did that. How could she? Come on, let's clean it up. We won't tell Nana about it, okay?
I was flabbergasted. Susie was sitting there practically red-handed, and they both just brushed it off. I scowled at their backs while they knelt to clean it up. Mom even gave Susie a little pat on the head before telling me to take her off to bed. I was furious and grabbed Susie a bit more roughly than I meant to by her arm and hauled her off to our shared room. My anger lessened more with each little sniffle that sounded in the dark. Finally, when the guilt became too much, I whispered my apology to her and we fell into an easy sleep, the coloring book already a thing of the past. When it came time for school to resume, I asked Mom what grade Susie would be in. She smiled, clearly amused, and said,
She's not going to school, honey. It's for big girls.
Of course. I nodded sagely. Susie was still too little. When I left the next morning, I could see Susie watching the bus pull away from our bedroom window. Her angelic little face was twisted into a dark frown. She didn't even respond when I waved. She was probably upset I was going without her, but what could I do? I'd make sure to play with her a lot when I got home. That night, I was met with two stern-faced parents who demanded to know why I had left my room in such a state when I'd been told very clearly to tidy it up before school. I was confused and protested my innocence. I just cleaned it yesterday. But they wouldn't listen and said I'd be in big trouble if I didn't get in there and straighten it up. Susie was waiting for me on my bed, her arms crossed proudly over her chest. The room around her was absolutely wrecked. Clothes were strewn about, my stuffed animals had been spilled to the floor, all my Barbies were thrown from their usual bin. I screamed at my parents that Susie was the one they should be mad at, but I got no answer. My sister just watched me clean. Over the next few weeks, things started going missing around the house, only to turn up mixed in with my belongings. Mom's jewelry, Dad's wallet, the car keys. Mom's engagement ring was never found, no matter how hard we looked. Then Smurf got out. Someone left the sliding door to the backyard open, and he just wandered away. Although they said they didn't blame me, I still received a long lecture about responsibility after that. I sobbed that it wasn't me, it was Susie.
Look, kiddo, you know we love you, but this has to stop. We know Susie didn't do it, you did, so it's time to stop.
I was completely and utterly betrayed. Susie never spoke up or corrected them, and they never even asked her for her side. I started to resent them all, and grew quieter and sullen. I withdrew from my parents and actively ignored Susie, which just made her act up more. A handmade lamp from my Aunt Connie was smashed. The living room curtains were cut into ribbons. Daddy's work laptop was doused with a glass of water. Still, they blamed me. I heard my mom talking to Nona on the phone about a behavioral specialist, but I didn't know what that meant. I just knew I was powerless and frustrated, and no one was listening. The last straw finally snapped when I came home from school and stomped into my room. Susie was standing over a pile of my clothes with a box of matches in her chubby little hands. She grinned at me, but it was a sinister expression, one that sent an icy chill down my back. I instinctively took a step back. That was all she needed. A match was struck and thrown flippantly into the pile. I screamed for my mom and rushed at Susie, who gleefully retreated to my bed and threw the matches at my feet. After much yelling and confusion, my parents were able to put out the flames, which hadn't gotten far, but had eaten most of my clothes. After they made sure I was okay, I was made to sit at a kitchen table and interrogated.
Susie did it!
Stop it, Amy!
I had never heard my father speak so sharply.
Enough! Why did you do it?
I told you!
Amy,
My mother took a gentler approach.
we just want to understand what's going on.
Then go yell at her!
Amy, Susie is a doll!
My father's hand came slamming down on the tabletop so hard that even Mom jumped. I stared at him, not comprehending.
No, she's horrible!
She is a doll, Amy! A toy! I wish I never bought you the damn thing!
Tom, please.
She needs to stop lying!
His nostrils flared with frustration, and he threw up his hands at us.
I'm not lying!
I was shaking with anger and fear and the righteous indignation of the falsely accused. I ran from the kitchen, screaming over my shoulder that I'd make Susie tell them everything. But when I got to my room, there was no little sister. No cherubic little girl with 2 bright blue eyes. Only a delicate porcelain doll that I'd seen at the toy store and wanted for my birthday, sitting on my bed, staring at the door with a frozen smile.